Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 16th October 2017. First article, Pakistan withdraws terror charges against Hafiz Saeed. You know that Mr. Hafiz Saeed is designated as an international terrorist by United States, UK and even by India. So he was wanted in India for Mumbai attacks. Pakistan, which has started an independent inquiry on Mr. Saeed, finally has withdrew the charges of terror against him. It means he can be freed from the house arrest. It has exposed the credibility of Pakistan with regard to the terrorism, fight against terrorism. Pro bono criteria for judges too. What does this mean? Pro bono means free of cost. As of today, Supreme Court has announced that if a lawyer to be designated as a senior lawyer in Supreme Court or High Court, he should have served certain cases free of cost. Now the government started saying even for the appointment of judges, this particular clause can be brought in. However, any changes with regard to the appointment of the judges, the final decision belongs to Collegium. That is, Chief Justice of India and 4 senior most judges have to make decisions on these matters. Let us come to the editorial page. The article, The Right to Read and Be Read. So, here the author clearly explains this way. The Supreme Court is the protector of the fundamental rights, and actions of the Supreme Court shall lead to the enlargement of the rights available to the citizens vis-a-vis the state. However, there are certain provisions of colonial era which are hindering this freedom of speech. So, in this context, he quotes Section 95 of Criminal Procedure Code and then Section 295 of A of the Indian Penal Code. Section 95 clearly says that state can forfeit or suspend publications that it deems to be violation of certain provisions of the Indian Penal Code. And Section 295A, it criminalizes a speech that hurts the religious sentiments. So it means any book which is written in relation to the religion and a particular section of the people, if they claim it is hurting their sentiments, then Section 295A of Indian Penal Code is providing an opportunity for the state to ban the book. So here, the Section 295A also has to be read in this way. Any such freedom of speech shall be voluntary and it shall have malicious intentions. So, Supreme Courts frequently supporting the state action, Supreme Court and High Courts both supporting the state action, is ultimately acting as a hindrance to freedom of speech. And it also goes against the notions of tolerance. That is the author's opinion is. So here he has taken example of recent ban of a book in Karnataka, but we don't need to get into the detail of that. The essence of this, there are many colonial laws which are still acting as obstacles for the full enjoyment of the rights by the citizens. That is the carry home point we shall have. The case for a public health cadre. Now, public health management involves many of the activities which are away from the medical practice. It means financial management, personal management, education of the people, preventive care. All these involves much wider activity. In this context, doctors who are trained on a Western model of education are not able to deliver the healthcare services deep in the preventive healthcare in the country. In this context, states like Odisha have created new healthcare personnel to manage the healthcare services. So an all India service can be created for the same purpose, and they can be trained in a centralized manner and can be deputed to the states that can provide for a good grounding for the functioning of healthcare system both at the center and the states. So remember one point over here. Mudaliar committee and Kartar Singh committee have already recommended for this thing. The next article is toxic farming. So pesticides and use of pesticides without preventive or safeguards is making farmers vulnerable to various diseases. And second is, in India, pesticide regulation is very weak. So one way, expenditure on the pesticides is stated as a reason for the farmer suicides. So lack of effective and efficient agricultural extension services is making the farmers to depend upon the middlemen rather than to take the services of professionals. And so, pesticides and their regulation is essentially from the farmer's income perspective, food safety perspective, and also from the health perspective. So, in this context, the way forward is government to frame or else pesticide management rules as quick as possible. The next is on dangerous footing. So, this is about Iran and United States relations. So, already we have discussed enough on this. The Trump is supposed to certify Iran nuclear deal once in 90 days. So, if you do not certify, then the matter will go to the Congress, and Congress has to make a decision within 60 days either to impose or not to impose the sanctions. So, Iran is following Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in letter and spirit, and European Union, IAEA have clearly acknowledged this. So, Trump not recertifying Iran nuclear deal can have long-term consequences to non-proliferation, US diplomacy, and also peace in West Asia. So, hardliners are expected to gain strength in Iran, and this is not good for West Asian politics. The next article, between disarmament and deterrence. You all know that international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons has won the Nobel Prize. Previously, President Obama was also given the Nobel Prize in the hope that he will be working towards nuclear-free world. But today, if we observe, USA, North Korea, India, Pakistan, each other are warning, or everyone is warning the other, for the reason that they have the nuclear weapons. So the countries today believe that nuclear weapons are the greatest deterrence. And even if you observe South Korea, Japan, even common people they are supporting the nuclear weapons. But Japan case is a bit different because it is the victim of the nuclear weapons till date. So in this process, what the world has to do to get rid of these nuclear weapons? The first rule is the policies or else the belief that the nuclear deterrence is the safety against any war or any threat has to be dispelled with. It means that whatever the causes which are causing for nuclear proliferation has to be clearly addressed. And second aspect, the civil society can strongly work to expose how expensive the nuclear weapons are. How can these funds be utilized in the developing countries for development? So that's why. So exposing the truth behind the nuclear weapons and also underlying causes for the proliferation of the nuclear weapons have to be worked with. The next is Persian insights. Now, why did this Iranian revolution has come up? And what might be the reason? United States in those days supported the Shah's regime, opposing the elected regime. So ultimately it has led to revolution, seizure of US consulate in Tehran, and finally sanctions of US. This is what has happened. So if we clearly go back, US policies in the past have really affected its relations and its diplomacy in the Middle East. That is what this article talks about. Now, ITBP raises maiden mechanized column. So for the swift movement across IndoChina border, a mechanized column with swift moving vehicles is being raised by Indo-Tibetan Border Police. And then the next is Indian economy is on a right track according to IMF chief Christine Lagarde. So what she says is there are short-term fluctuations exist in Indian growth pattern today because of demonetization and GST, but they can prove to be useful in the medium term. So the medium forecast of India is expected to be better than the short-term forecast. Now in the last page I gave you the notes, and this notes is available at likes.in/civils prep. Thank you very much and all the best.